guys, gals and non-binary pals to a new video by Them Fatales. I'm Alicia and this is gonna be a bit more of a colloquial videos than our usual essays, and possibly because of that we're going to be able to bring this to you more often. And this exists and comes out today because Season 2 of Emily in Paris is coming out on the 22nd of December. Brought to Netflix by the same creator of Sex and the City, Darren Star, and with the costumes of the same wardrobe designer, Patricia Field, who is the reason why aesthetic of stuff like The Devils Wear Prada is still enticing to this day to us. But just as Sex and the City did not age well at all in terms of feminism, of women's solidarity, queerphobia representation, Emily might seem to start off on a better foot. Production has declared this as a love letter to Paris from the eyes of an enthusiastic girl boss that makes her own way through the city with fresh, excited eyes. Netflix declared that in the first month of its release, so back in October 2020, supposedly 58 million households watched it, prompting, of course, the renewal for a second season. However, the online presence of a fandom seems very rarefied, which makes me think that Emily in Paris has been watched as a bit of a guilty pleasure that one doesn't think they should admit to liking. When you consider it as the last step in an arch that started over 20 years ago by Darren Star's creation, is Emily's progressiveness all that it seems? Well, Season 1 was widely described as a 5-hour Instagram scrolling. It's pretty to look at, but it leaves you with nothing new. Chewing gum for the eyes, which, funnily enough, is possibly not by chance a way to describe it, because it used to be the tagline of MTV in the notice, the same MTV Studios that now produces Emily in Paris. But trying to find something beneath the chewing gum, I'll admit some things ring particularly familiar to me personally. Cause, I was Emily in Paris. In my early 20s, I got the call, and from Italy, I was transferred for a job in the music industry in London, United Kingdom. So I understand the excitement. I was excited. I loved my job to a detriment. I had a bit of a culture shock because my vision of the UK and its people was all based on the rom-coms of Richard Curtis. But at least I already spoke English fluently, despite it not being my native language. In point of fact, having survived a phone interview to land my job in London, I wouldn't have even got the job if I could not sustain a proper work conversation in the language that my job would have been using. But whereas Emily is a marketing executive at 23, 24 years old, I don't know, new season will tell apparently. I got there at the same age, but as an assistant. Emily has a bit of a bulldozer attitude to French culture. She's there to bring the American point of view, and she'll show it down your throat if necessary. Yeah, no, I would have never done that. But I respect that. You know, she can be bossy without being depicted as bitchy, and she can be firm without being antagonistic. She keeps on repeating to Sylvie, we are on the same team. At that age, when I was transplanted in London for, well, supposedly 3 months, in the capital of dreams, when your dreams are music, there is a lot of myself that I see in Emily. But again, I was starting with much less authority and without the we're the best attitude of Americans. My approach to work, ideas and colleagues was definitely different. I was all for integrating.
Your language is seriously effed up.
Being part of marginalized group in my home country, it was a gift to see that regardless of my name, regardless of my looks, I was speaking the language, I was being polite, and that was all that was required to be accepted. And you know, accepted meant going for drinks after works in London, because the UK lunch culture is quite stuck at the desk. Also, if we want to get a little bit deeper into it, working in the creative industries as well, I was a bit surprised that the only person of color is also the only queer character in the office. Possibly part of the reason why I was accepted and integrated easily was the number of queer people in my office, and they would be friendly to me, I guess, simply because we know how shit it is to be marginalized. Unlike most YouTube reviews and essays that seem to just love to shit on Emily in Paris because it seems like the cool thing to hate, And to a degree, I can see what is problematic in there. I was glad to also see some slight push of better attitudes, especially amongst women from the Sex and the City era Darren Star produced. Definitely an improvement there. As much as I consider there is an issue with the close-mindedness of the American way, which reduces French culture and people to stereotypes, I can concede that the fact that her bossiness is not depicted as bitchy, it's a step in the right direction. The same goes for promiscuity. In the 90s, much as there was Samantha in Sex and the City, the description for her, even amongst her friends, was slut.
Condoms! Condoms! Yes! Condoms!
And that was just based on how much she was sleeping around. Emily can be promiscuous or simply interested in sex without it being negatively defined. It's part of her confidence and emancipation. Yes, I have a magic wand, and so what? So I personally see pros in the bossiness and the promiscuity and the way that they are treated, mostly. Given the bossiness specifically, I am pleasantly surprised on how women's antagonism is not depicted as petty and competitive. Emily keeps saying to Sylvie, we are on the same team. At a stretch, that's a lot of a stretch, I understand, even in the way that Emily cheats on her friendship with Camille. Don't get me wrong, I really hope that one day we'll be ready to admit that getting respect and supporting friendships is actually worth more to us than the excitement of the forbidden fruit, if that's what hurts our friends. But we're still in awe of the male lead, the Prince Charming, so unsurprisingly here we're not there yet. And actually, with the queer baiting that there was for Emily and Camille, how amazing would it be if they braved giving us a proper throuple and not a love triangle in season 2?
So do you want to get in bed with me?
I thought you never asked.
Cheese.
One can dream. The cons of Emily in Paris, so far for me, overlap for the most part with the cons of, you guessed it, white feminism. The scope of the issues and the self-actualizations are very narrow-minded. There would be issues to explore, but they are not even addressed. Rachel Handler for Vulture opined that Darren Star has done it yet again, centered an entire show on a thin, gently delusional white woman whimsically exploring a major metropolitan area in wildly expensive couture purchased on a mid-level salary. And the fashion contradictions are likely to remain for season 2, because the tagline is more amour, more couture. Although again, being aspirational without a leg to stand on a practical level. I know it's narrative and it doesn't have to make sense, but like all narrative, even fantasy, good ones tends to be based on believable setups. The Rengarde episode has no reason to exist.
Rengarde.
She's been wearing full Chanel and Louboutin outfits, and then she has the Gossip Girl monologue.
You're right. I am a basic bitch with a bag charm. In fact, do you want to know why I got that bag charm? Because my friends and I were obsessed with Gossip Girl. We all wanted to be Serena van der Woodsen in her gorgeous, crazy expensive couture. But the only thing we could afford from any of those designers was a clip-on bag charm from a outlet mall in Winnetka. I guess that made us pretty Rengarde. You may mock us, but the truth is, you need us. Without basic bitches like me, you wouldn't be fashionable.
Oh, I wish I had those outfits. Girl, you're wearing them now. You don't work like that. She has a similar discussion with Sylvie.
Listen, I don't agree with your approach. You want everything to be everywhere, accessible to everyone. You want to open doors. I want to close doors. We work with very exclusive brands, and they require mystery, and you have no mystery. You're very, very obvious.
Maybe I am. But I do understand what it means to be on the outside looking in. I have a perspective that you will never understand because no, I'm not sophisticated or French, and I don't know how to look like you, that slouchy, sexy je ne sais quoi thing. But I am the customer that wants it. And you're not, because you've already got it, and you don't even know how you did it.
And that is a huge incongruence. I guess the hope is do as I say, not as I do, because Emily can be an easy vessel for anyone watching for that aspirational appreciation of glamour and luxury. But let's be honest, if we watch, we like the eye candy settings and outfits. So we hear ourselves in these monologues on, oh, I'm looking at fancy things from the outside and I want them. But when you're not just dazzled by the visual appeal, it's a bit of an issue that it's not in line with what she's actually wearing. If wardrobe is such a vehicle for the story, and it very much tends to be when Patricia Field is involved, I am surprised that it wasn't actually written into it. Like, ever have a makeover situation like they have in The Devil Wears Prada, where then she can actually conceal excitement about the clothes she's wearing because they are indeed the luxury that she claims to have looked and aspired to since Gossip Girl days. Even in Ugly Betty, which by no chance is also the work of Patricia Field, there is a wardrobe scene where Betty, working at a fashion magazine, without the classic look that she would need to integrate in that community, understands that just one of those fashion items, label items, would feed her entire family for months. I've read about a theory that the outfits being flashy and colorful are just a way to emphasize how Emily doesn't fit in. And I would love to believe that if it wasn't a Patricia Field production. When she's hired, it's because they want us to lose consciousness over the fashion elevated as art. So no, they want Emily to look beautiful and elevated, and we discuss the outfits first and foremost because of it. Again, season 2 tagline, literally, more amour, more couture. Ultimately, we have to admit that it's a very capitalist issue of how much a promotional advert for consumerism this is. So it's good to keep that in mind despite the visual appeal. Let's not forget that this is a production with so much money that they flew 30 members involved in the Golden Globes to Paris just to push their product. And they managed to push their product. They got them 2 nominations at the Golden Globes. The same Golden Globes that didn't give 1 nomination to Michaela Coel's I Might Destroy You, to the surprise of even one of Emily in Paris' own writers. So it's noticeable. In general, the series gives an open justification to the characters being rich to allow for the setting and wardrobe. Camille is an heiress, Mindy is too, and actually she utters the words, "I'm super rich," despite being supposedly cut off, so there's a bit of suspension of disbelief there. Gabrielle would be the only one in average reality working as a chef, having money issues when it comes to having his own restaurant. If it wasn't that an apartment like that seems a bit expensive for someone in his position. Emily at least is justified in having her workplace pay for her apartment. I guess you can say that Emily in Paris is aspirational in the way that the Kardashians could be, literally for all the glitter and lifestyle. So for that, I appreciate that compared to the Kardashians, Emily adds a bit of personality in it. Her workability is actively shown and part of the development compared to Carrie in Sex and the City, who's supposed to be this great writer, but we never actually could tell for ourselves. However, and this doesn't escape the attention, her workability is shown with the narrative expedient of writers being gods of their characters and controlling the quality of their work by deciding their reactions and outcomes, which in this case are shown as quirky and original just because it's part of the overall narrative to show that the American way is better than the French. Just relent already, France.
It's a little controversial. I like it.
So let me get this straight. We're supposed to believe that the French don't know how to market luxury. Their bread and butter, the reason that they're known for.
Excuse me, but the French are masters of social media.
True. But Americans invented it.
And all that it takes is a young American to revolutionize and better their monolithic approach.
It's very sexy, no?
Sexy or sexist?
What is the problem?
With all due respect, I have been sent here for a reason.
The sexy or sexist episode seems to be Darren Star bathing Emily in politically correctness without quite understanding why she'd be doing that. Her take on the commercial shoot where a naked model walks on the bridge catching the attention of all the men is incredibly pious and puritanical and truly doesn't take into consideration the French culture, not because of its sexism, but indeed because of its surrealism. The European take on bodies has always been more liberated, whereas the American point of view does not allow butts to be shown on TV, but will welcome a man digging in the guts of a corpse in a show like The Walking Dead. It feels a bit like the equivalent of Western feminism going against Muslim women wearing headscarves without taking into consideration the cultural meaning of such an act for them is simply a way to honor God. It takes the view that other cultures are barbaric without considering that there is a frame of reference that could be different from the American one, God forbid. Globalizing media and universal culture remove the challenge and radical ideas that might not be palatable to foreign market. You create the same sameness that end up affecting everything on an international scale. Emily in Paris tells the world, because the writers make it so, that her particular brand of feminism and ideas are better than anyone she's surrounded by, even in an international context. But at the same time, it can't be too challenging about sexuality or queerness or even class, because then the international markets wouldn't find it as palatable as they do. Lily Collins herself, going over season 1 looks, repeatedly mentioned how she would never wear those, and that is a classic example of the culture of opulence and glamour. They are colorful and flashy to give concretization to an ideal of individuality, exactly because we hardly see it in everyday life. And in fact, in everyday life, Lily says she would never wear them. But you can bet that I'd wear the shit out of that Chanel petrol green jacket if I could ever afford it. Ironically, she can have it and wear it for free, and she wouldn't. I would happily spend the money if I had it in overabundance to wear something so colorful. It would actually make me happy. Oh no, I would never wear it, it's too ostentatious to wear. Try me. Darren Star has definitely taken notes on where the world is going and how stuff done in Sex and the City wouldn't be condoned now. He made Emily superficially attentive to politically correctness. But just the way that Sex and the City did not age well, I wonder if in a world where hustling and giving all our lives to work is not seen as aspirational or even acceptable anymore, in a world where the Great Resignation has started, which will need and demand better wages and treatment of employees, is Emily and her peppy attitude to a job something that's not going to age well? They took notes to make her a positive character all around, with growing independence along with feminist liberation lines. But when done performatively, feminist manifestations rarely age well because they lack the core understanding of why. In this, Luke maybe is more emblematic of Emily's generation than Emily even is.
You live to work. We work to live.
But I enjoy work. It makes me happy.
Work makes you happy?
Yes.
Maybe you don't know what it is to be happy.
But these were just my thoughts. What did you think about it? Did you take the eye candy at face value? Were you particularly bothered? Were you actually offended, like some reviews and essays were? I honestly didn't mind too much. I appreciate to see the colorfulness and don't give it much of a thought, because there isn't much to give a thought about. There is a lot of actual political incorrectness despite the willfulness to do otherwise. And there has been criticism of racism, rightfully. Am I gonna watch season 2 of Emily in Paris? In a way, I can't wait. It's indeed 5 hours where my brain just gets switched off and it's entertained by colorful things. and I like colorful things. Thank you so much for watching. A big thanks to our Patreons, who are literally the ones that are allowing us to even think about making new videos at the moment. If you want to support what we do, that is the best way to actually propel us to be able to make more and more videos in the future. You find all the links necessary down in the description below, and I hope you have very merry holidays, and we will see you soon in January.